Hi, so today I thought I'd do a shootout or a comparison between some of the new SSL EQ emulations that have come out. Now we all know there's been a lot of SSL emulations over the years. I've heard most of the big name ones anyway. I mean, there's so many of them, I can't have heard all of them obviously, but I've heard a lot of them. And I really feel that some of these new ones, too, particularly really stand out to my ears as being a real step forward in terms of realism and just sounding amazing. Please give it a like and subscribe. It really helps. So SSL to me, SSL EQs, to be specific, to me are my go-to for drums. I've got many EQs, as anybody watching my videos know, and I know that SSL is really a popular EQ in rock music, but it's great for jazz and prog too, and I always go to it for drums because you just so quickly, or I so quickly, can get the sounds that I want from it. Something about the way the EQs work just suits drums. I don't actually like the SSL EQs on other instruments all that much. I rarely use it on anything other than drums. That's just me. I mean, it can sound great on anything, but I have other EQs that I tend to get the results I need on other instruments a lot quicker. But for drums, it's just like I could just dial it straight in. So anybody that knows the SSL, especially the E and G series, which is what we're going to be looking at today, knows that one of the things that's kind of, I guess you could say, unusual about it is that you can really boost a huge amount, 10 dB or something like that, or even more, and it doesn't sound like you've over EQ'd, on drums at least anyway. Whereas most other EQs, by the time you boost that much, it just sounds way overdone and like you obviously EQ'd. With an SSL, it just doesn't. It just sounds like more of that drum sound that you want of that particular frequency, and it just seems to make drums sound better and more drum-like. So it's the same with the low end. Always brings out just what I need in a kick drum, and the top end and the mids also just bring out just what you need in a drum sound. So that's why I use them, and we're going to be comparing the Brainworx emulation, which is pretty new. At least in terms of the range of SSL EQs that we've had, it's a newcomer. And to my ears, it's a cut above almost all the other ones I've heard. And then we've got the CLA Mix Hub, which also to my ears is another one that's as good. And then I've got the Sand from Acustica, which you're going to be looking at. And I like a lot of the Acustica plugins. This one is the most different sounding, and you'll hear that compared to these two. So that's the E series, and then for the G, we don't have a Waves one, but we have the comparison between the Brainworx for the G and also the Acustica. But for the E, we've got 3. And then what I've also got is I've got the old Waves SSL E and G series, the original official Solid State Logic Waves version, just because so many people know what that sounds like. And it's just really interesting to see how far things have come since Waves first did that SSL plugin. It's just as a kind of comparison that with something we're kind of all familiar with. So I hope you find this useful, and let's have a listen. Okay, so here we have 3 relative newcomers to the SSL emulation, and an old one that probably a lot of people will be familiar with. And I brought this one here just to kind of give it a comparison to something that's been around a long time. Everybody kind of knows what it sounds like. So this is a kick drum, and it's not a bad kick drum sound. I'm going to play it without anything just so you can hear what it's like. So you can hear not a bad kick drum sound. Doesn't have a lot of Resonance is quite a tight sound, and it's got quite a good click already. But what I'm doing here is I'm doing the classic SSL thing of giving a really big boost, because that's what's one of the characteristics of SSL EQs, is that you can boost them a lot, especially on drums, and it doesn't sound like you've overdone the EQ. It actually sounds good. So around about 50 to give it some weight, and then a cut at around 300 to pull out the boxiness, and a little bit of somewhat of a boost here at 1.9K to actually not bring out the click, because there's already click's pretty apparent, but just thicken it up a bit. And this is a pretty standard kind of approach to a kick drum. So what I'll do is I'm going to start with this one, and then I'm going to go around kind of in order like this. I think I'll do the CLA next, and then I'm going to do the Sand, and then I'll end up with the SSL, with the waves, the original waves one. Okay, so I'll start with it out, and I'll bring this one in, and then I'll bring each one out and in turn. So, what are my impressions on this? I will go through it again in a minute, but just before I do, my feeling is that this one gives it the most weight. That solid, weighty low end. It's really, really getting that more than the others to my ears. The CLA is got some of that weight as well, but it's kind of a bit of a slightly tighter sound. This one has a very smooth top end, and this one is, it kind of almost, it's got some weight, but it's also a little bit more kind of a bit more round sounding at the low end, I would say. And this one to me is the least appealing to my ears. It sounds a bit, doesn't have that weight at all, and it almost sounds like you're boosting higher up, like 100 hertz up there. So I'm going to go through them again now, and just play one, stop, and just say a couple of things, and then move to the next one again. So start again with this one. So you can hear it's really got that weighty, solid low end to it, and the top end's quite smooth sounding, and it has what I think the SSL is lacking, the original Waves SSL is lacking, is it doesn't have what all three of these have. Is it's got, apart from the difference in tonal sound, they seem to almost react to the kick. It's almost like the emulation of the analog circuitry has gotten a lot better, and so like an analog circuit would react to the sound and change almost dynamically in how it responds depending on the transient and the amount of level of different frequencies coming through it. And these, they give it that feeling like they're kind of moving with the sound more, and this sounds a lot more static to me. So I'm just going to play this one again, and then do the same with the next and move around like that. So really meaty low, solid low end and a smooth top end. Now moving over to this one. So quite similar, a slightly different character to the low end. It's got quite a solid low end, but it's a little bit more contained, a little bit kind of tighter sounding, and not quite as weighty. The top end similarly kind of smooth to that. So let's move over to the Acustica. Now with this one, it doesn't have that weighty low end, but it might be because I found that this filter here, this high-pass filter, was not reacting the same at all as the high-pass filter that I've got on the others. So if you see, this is down at 35 hertz, 36 hertz. This is all the way down at 16.8, and it still feels like it's, if I brought it up to the same as these, it kills the low end completely, so it's not the same filter. So I'm going to try pulling this down a bit to see if we can get a bit more weight from it. So yeah, you do get more weight, but it still sounds different to me. It sounds more, it doesn't have the same weight and solidity as these two, particularly the Brainworx one. And it also has a more of a rounded sound higher up to me, sounding like it's getting some of the 100 hertz sounds a little more brought out to me. So yeah, different, but not as different as I find this one. So let's have a listen to this one. So this one sounds markedly different to me. It doesn't have that solid low end at all. It sounds much more like it's boosting higher up to me. It may well be boosting at 50, but it seems to be that the curve there is different on that shelf. It's on shelf, it's not on bell, just like the others. So it's getting a lot more higher up frequencies than where it's set to me. And it's not really getting that weighty low end. And the high end to me doesn't sound as smooth. And overall, it just sounds more static to me. It doesn't have that more analog-y kind of feel as if it's moving with the sound. So I'm going to go to this one and then jump all the way to the BX again, just so to the Brainworx, just so you can hear a comparison. So these two are a lot more similar to each other than the others are to these two or to each other. And they both have that weighty low end, particularly the Brainworx, but they're actually, they both have a fair amount of that. Okay, so now we've got the G series, and here I've just got two to try against each other with a kind of reference of the old Waves official SSL G. Which is obviously quite long in the tooth now, and I think things have come a bit of a way since then in terms of their emulations. So there's a big difference between these two, much more than there was for the E series. I don't know why that is, but it's really different, so we'll hear that. I'm going to just play again the kick without anything on it. And now I'm going to bring in this Brainworx G series. Again, that really solid low end. And I set it up to be like that. That's what I was going for. Like the E series, but it has a different character from the E series, clearly. But it's still got that solid low end. I had to actually pull down quite a bit here on this high shelf, because I found that with a similar kind of boost that I had on the E series, I was getting too much top end. So obviously, it's quite more pronounced, the boost at the top end, which isn't a bad thing. It's just on this particular kick drum, it was giving me more click than I wanted, so I pulled back here. But I wanted to boost here because I wanted to shape the click away from its dry sound, which is a bit thin, to being a bit kind of thicker. So boosting it a bit sort of lower down. And then shaving off some of that thin top end here. So reproducing that on the Acustica G series emulation. I'm just going to play this one again. I'm going to move over to the Sand. So right away, like nothing like it. So I'm going to go now from back to the, because it's so different, I'm going to go back again to the Brainworx and then jump over to the Waves to give that comparison. So again, just like with the E series, I'm finding the Waves, despite the fact that I've got this at 50, appears to be boosting it a lot higher up as well. So I'm guessing that's because the curve it's got here is really different. And it also has that kind of slightly static flat sound to it compared to the Brainworx, which sounds a lot more analog and alive, like it's reacting to the signal more, like you would get in a real desk. Now the curious thing is, I mean, it's not curious about the Waves. This is an old plugin and it was good in its day, but things have come a long way. But the Sand the acoustic is surprising because it's just so different. So what I'm going to do is try and pull back this setting and boost a lot less and see if I can get something a bit more similar to this. I mean, I expect with an SSL that with those kind of boosts, you're not going to get those extreme sounding EQ settings like we're getting with this. And what I'm getting out of the BX is the Brainworx is what I would expect to get. So I'm going to pull back on this and see what I can do. See if that's getting a bit closer. Not really. I don't think I'm going to get there. Not even close. So really, really different. I mean, just really trying to just pull this further down and that further down to try to get that low beefy end and get away from that kind of boomy thing I'm getting from this. And I'm not getting anywhere close there. One thing that's worth noting is that the Acustica is sampled from an actual desk, whereas the Brainworx as an emulation, a circuit emulation, which, you know, they are incredibly good at getting, and they really do seem to get the sound that way. But the Acustica are actually sampling an actual desk, so which is another way of getting very, very, you know, close to the sound. But it may be that the particular desk that they sampled, you know, had a different characteristic to it because it hadn't been maintained, or it was just had some variations. So it may be that it is actually very accurate, but it's simply that the desk they sampled was quite different sounding. But it's interesting to hear. I'm not saying it's worse or better, but on this particular kick drum, I'm not getting anything like what I'd like to get. But it might be good on other sources. So I hope you found this useful. If you did, please give this a like and please do subscribe, and hope to see you next time.